Okay. There I am. And now I'm live. So I will give it a few minutes for folks to join. I will tell you, for those who are just going to watch this later, if there's a little extra noise, I think it might be one of those unfortunate necessities. The reason being is last week, when it was even warmer than it is today, and it's pretty cold today in Michigan, I stopped the space heater. I keep a space heater kind of right where I sit to run the computer. I stopped it for the 2 hours that I was live streaming, and it was so cold. The floor got so cold, and I think it just mostly like my feet got so cold that I was suffering from exposure for quite some time that day afterwards. So, which means basically that I got a fever for a while. For any of you who are familiar with those short-lived exposure fevers, that's what happened. So hopefully that space heater, because it's one of your simple steel upright heaters with kind of a loud fan on it, because I thought it was appropriate, but it is a little loud. So hopefully it's not too loud in the mic. This mic is usually good with mostly picking up what's right in front of it, so my voice, and not much besides. Anyways, what I'm going to do is I might actually, let's see. So we got 3 viewers. Good. Thanks for showing up. I'm going to switch kind of to the screen and maybe just jump around the screen a little bit. Talk about a few things. One of them, I know I touched on this probably a little bit last time, because I'm going to continue this time to talk about some weirdness about South America. And it's not just South America. It's a lot of places. Now, like I said in the last stream, what it comes down to is I have a suspicion of how accurate the size, and even oftentimes maybe the location of a lot of these places are, based on what appears to be extremely shoddy official facts, I guess, what they call facts. How about we say official information? Because facts is a very loaded word. And I think some people use the word facts very irresponsibly. So maybe I can kind of blow this up a little bit. So for anybody who's familiar with time zones and the way they work, funny enough, little story about time zones. It actually took me a little bit of time when I started. I mean, I knew about time zones, don't get me wrong. I knew about time zones, and I knew about the international dateline. But it took me a little time to sort of work out in my head how it worked, in the sense that on the one side of the dateline, it's always going to be a different day than on the other side. Before I realized, because, I would look through these other 23, we'll say, I guess, or all 24 time zones, and it would always bother me, like, well, why does it have to be a different day on that side of this line? Before it finally occurred to me, well, because it's arbitrary. That's why. Because it's arbitrary. And what about that arbitrary line that is questionable? I'm sure there's plenty of things. The fact that it's in the Pacific and it's so far removed from where anyone really is And, and the fact that there are islands that are so far removed from it, that's weird too. Um, the other strange characteristics about it, like those two islands, a couple of miles apart, but it's always going to be Sunday on the one and Monday on the other. Yeah, but I guess if you have an arbitrary dateline, you have to expect that. The weird thing for me is where current land masses fall in this dateline. It's pretty strange. And I kind of wonder about, for instance, how many people in any of these places, and I'm going to think that the number's probably pretty low, have done independent experiments just on, for instance, the angle of the sun at those certain times when it's supposed to be, if we look at this timeline, this chart, going forward or backwards from Greenwich Mean Time. How many people, because in a lot of these places, there aren't any people. In a lot of these places, there aren't any people to even check. So, I mean, as you can see, Greenland, which, of course, they just call Denmark because it's just supposed to be a territory of Denmark. Greenland spans how many time zones? Well, not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, because it's got the 0 in there too. There's like 6 time zones represented, even though, well, geographically. We're not going to say as far as time. They say it spans the 0, so that's how many after Greenwich Mean Time, and the 1, and the 2, and the 3. They're saying 4. Of course, geographically, it certainly looks like 4, but kind of the 4 wrong time zones. It's kind of weird. And the thing is, besides for a couple of little spots on the east coast of it, most of it is just in one time zone, which is the -3 hours after Greenwich Mean Time. And that's weird. It's just kind of strange to me. When I started realizing where some things are in their time zones, I thought that's even weirder, like I guess I never realized that East Texas and much of Mexico was on the same time as like Chicago, or just how spread out various time zones are. Of course, the most obvious ones as far as bizarre time zones, besides islands, I don't know what the pattern is here, but it's just like all the time, these islands, they keep stretching into like the wrong time zone based on where they are geographically, right? So if Iceland is this far west, why is it on the Greenwich Mean Time with England? That's supposed to be so much further east of it. Why is the majority of Europe all on one time zone? The obvious is why China and most of Mongolia and what do we got? Part of, that's not Siberia. Country is that? All on the same time zone. All on the same time zone, and not the right one. Geographically, not the right one. Parts of Siberia, not on the geographical correct time zone. Neither is Kazakhstan. It's out at least by one. A lot of these just seem like, man, should they absolutely be in a different time zone. I don't know why they colored India purple if it's supposed to be in +5. I think they'd color it red. I don't know. Oh, 5.5, because they say it's in 5.5. So it's pretty weird how time zones seem to overlap the way they do, and I thought it would be really interesting if someone had the graphic abilities or could get the file that had all of this in vectors, and they could actually put all of these places, first off, into their appropriate time zone as far as like geographically. You know, like say these islands right here, and I'm not sure which ones these are. Some Polynesian island, maybe, is supposed to be somewhere else. Well, put it into the right geography. Or these little islands down here, put them in the appropriate geography. These islands here, I guess if they were in the appropriate geography, they'd be in the middle of South America. How weird is that? So, and of course, it seems like it gets worse in the north, but that's the problem, is that we have to believe that a lot of the lands in the south are exactly as they say, in order to believe that, you know, it's problematic in the north. So let's see. Last time I was talking about South America. Now, one of the things that I brought up was this problem with there being no road from Panama to Colombia, like anywhere in Colombia. In fact, as you can see on my screen here, this road, which they call Highway 1, stops in this area they call the Darien Gap. And there's no other road, you know, until Colombia. They say probably the closest road is this Highway 62. And then I talked about the bays, how it's interesting that there's a really large grayed out bay on the one side of Panama and on the other side. It's very interesting, just in the sense that anyone sailing south or whatever direction you want to say from the Panama Canal might hit, you know, this large bay, and maybe they would be turned back by whomever or the large bay here in Colombia. But I started seeing more weird things as I looked closer on the map. I'm not sure if I've ever tried to take a close look at the Darien Gap, but I am right now. And as you can see, for some reason the good folks at Google Earth just can't be consistent with details. Like, for instance, here in the Darien Gap, I mean, it looks all fine, I guess, from a certain height. Like everything looks the same from a certain elevation. The problem is how inconsistent it is as far as when you start focusing in. And some places are extremely clear, some places are extremely detailed, and some places, well, not so much. And we have all of these odd phenomenons, like, for instance, when you'll go from one place that seems like it has very sharp detail, like you'll see right on the screen here. There's a line straight up the screen. And on the left side, we have a, looks like a small winding river that looks like, if we zoom in on that, we'll get some real detail. While over here, we have this Rio Turia, and we're not going to get any detail if we try to zoom in on it. Over here on the left, we have Rio Coupe. Look at that. Oh, that looks sharp, man. Really sharp. I wish I could say every time I zoomed in on something and it actually did look sharp, which made me kind of happy, that I could actually confirm detail and existence by doing Street View. Unfortunately, I can't. I can't, and I hope I'm going to have some time to demonstrate that. So, you know, some people could say, well, look, they mapped some of these places out when it was kind of night or early in the morning or something. You know, we get these clouds oftentimes. I've noticed that. Oddly enough, we tend to get the clouds on some of the worst offenders as far as blurriness, difficulty to see. But, I mean, look, even with as detailed as this little section looked in comparison to this one, which is awful, when we get up north of that, now we've got some great detail. Wow. If there was only a street here that we could land on. But it is kind of strange that the map is like that. Now, I'm not saying there aren't excuses. There probably are excuses. But it is really interesting that there's oftentimes so many places that are supposed to be places, like towns, maybe even cities, that are, they're totally obscured. You absolutely can't really confirm anything. I guess your only confirmation of the existence of these places, as they say, is, well, as they say, I suppose. See, we go back in near this bay on the west side of Panama, and it's just as blurry as can be, really. We might not get any clarity until we make it around to a section like here. This section, we're going to have some clarity, but all these spots of absolute no clarity, it's really weird. It's concerning. Now, I don't think this is going to happen here, but I find it just really concerning when I get to some spots where I really need to confirm that something is what they say, and I can do absolutely no street view. On places that I really can't understand why there is no street view, which, by the way, this right here, what I'm looking at, this is supposed to be the very end of that highway. They say this is where that highway ends. It's kind of weird. Because they got more on the other side of that river too, don't they? And it looks like they have a bridge. Oh, but you can't go across that. I'm not sure if that is a bridge. Don't know what that is. I would say maybe a ferry crossing, but I don't see a ferry. And I don't know. Will they let me land? I mean, I don't see any reason why I couldn't, but maybe not. Maybe not. Because there's not supposed to be any roads south of there. Looks like streets. Are there streets? I don't know. Because it looks like they're superimposing roads, but there's obviously no roads. Even though they say there's things down here, there's things. Maybe there is. Maybe there isn't. And of course, one of the problems is independent confirmation of what's going on here. This also seems to be the spot where two rivers converge. I can't imagine that that's all that big, though. Really, if I just made a line on the map. Let me see. So here's where the road ends, right up here. I don't think this is very big. They say under a mile. It would be under a mile. Maybe so. But anyways, let me see if I can kind of bring up a few of my other problems with South America as it's been presented. Anyways, one thing I thought was interesting is I was looking at some of these the cruises, like, you know, the cruises to Panama that'll go from Los Angeles to Fort Lauderdale. They'll go through the Panama Canal, and then I think most of them, they make a stop in Colombia, Cartagena, I believe, which, let's see, that would be up a ways, yeah, Cartagena, up here, and then back to Fort Lauderdale in record time. So I'll bring up a couple of things. I guess this is a little bit more of the basics that I was thinking last week and forward, but it still bears some repeating. All right. For any of you who are also in the Facebook group, you know that I posted a couple of things over the last week. Like, for instance, this whole spot supposedly in Brazil, and it's almost kind of like the middle of Brazil. If you just check, you know, as the crow flies to the mouth of the Amazon, 750 miles to the mouth of the Amazon as the crow flies. So it's way inland, way inland. And apparently the only way to get there in Brazil would be to sail like 1,000 miles up the Amazon, and there better be something really, 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 really valuable to sail 1,000 miles up the Amazon and other rivers. And when you start hearing about all of the strangeness and the horrors of the Amazon, but there's this place here where they say the two rivers meet, the Rio Negro and the Amazon, and they have pictures, they have videos of people out on a ferry seeing this confluence of these two waters and how they don't mix so great. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of places in the world where, say a river meets a sea or a strait, or two seas meet where the waters don't mix. Just because we see the confluence of two waters in a place which is pretty enormous too, according to Google Earth, and problem is we can't absolutely trust this. They say that this is 1.35 miles right here, just to this land over here. But one of the problems that we have with Amazon descriptions, let me see if I can put it this way. So if you watch any of the informational documentaries on the Amazon, one of the things they'll tell you is, depending on what time of year it is, whether it's the dry season or rainy season, which there's even conflicting information there, because some of the old propaganda videos say it rains every day. So seems like everything's the rainy season, but anyways, so they say the rainy season. During the rainy season, they say the Amazon rises up to 50 feet in a lot of places. 50 feet, folks, 50 feet. And they say that it widens from anywhere, like they say the average of the Amazon is, anywhere from it can be like 1 to, they say, well, anywhere from like 1 to 6 miles. But when it rains, it can be up to 24 miles wide. 24 miles wide. At 5 or 6 miles wide, you have real problems with confirming things on the other side just by sight. And I guess one of my issues of that being the case with, for instance, maybe Google Earth, is, so did they manage to do all their flyovers at just the right season where the levels, height, and of course width of the Amazon were all the same? Because I just need to know, when were the flyovers done? And I mean, if the Amazon grows that much, wouldn't its tributaries grow quite a bit too? I mean, I don't think we have any reason to believe there's any huge difference if it's dependent on rain, not snow melt or anything else. What are we getting here? Are we getting like the driest dry season? What does the place look like? What does the map look like when it's the rainy season and it swells 50 feet deep, 25 miles wide? The other problem is when you see these propaganda films on the Amazon, nobody has anything built appropriate to the great shrinks and swells that they say happens. They say it happens, they say that people have to deal with it, but nothing that you see structurally kind of deals with that. And it makes me wonder too, like, wow, man, that's horrible. It rises 50 feet, which means that it can spread that big. I mean, because look, it's confluent with Rio Negro here. And so if the Amazon, like half the year, is potentially rising up to 50 feet and potentially spreading up to 25 miles, Why the hell would Manaus, like right in the heart of all of this, have infrastructure all the way up to the exact shoreline of Rio Negro? Don't they understand that the Amazon does that? They live on it, for crying out loud. But they seem to have all their shits right up to the shoreline. That's so strange. And we'll see that actually with other cities along the Amazon too. It seems that the Amazon is very polite in the sense that, yes, it's going to do that out in the wilds, of course. But when it gets to a city, it thinks about the fact that that city's got business to do. So it can't just be rising by 50 feet and spreading up to 26 miles around a city, for crying out loud. Here we got another one. They don't look like they're ready for the rising and spreading of the Amazon there. The polite Amazon. And I'll actually move out. We'll look at some of the other cities along there too. I'm going to take a look just who's here. We got 7 viewers, looks like. Good. Thanks for joining me. 8 viewers. Hope you all are doing good. Let me see. Do we have any other cities that are built right up to the banks of the mighty expanding Amazon? Who didn't think, oh my gosh, this river could rise by 50 feet, don't you know? And it could spread up to 5 times as wide. And maybe we shouldn't build our city right up to the banks of it. Excuse me. Yeah, so we've got this whole wetlands here. And this Oriximina looks like they're not planning on that water rising and spreading. They're right up to the banks of it. And I'm not finding any place where this Amazon on Google Earth is all that wide. I mean, maybe a few miles according to my little ruler, my Google Earth ruler. So I'm having to assume that they're taking pictures when it's at its smallest. I would hate to think this is at its widest, because if so, and it shrinks a bunch, these people are going to have quite a walk to get to the banks of it. But it looks like everything is intact for the river to remain the exact same way all the time. At least according to Google Earth. So if this mighty river does what they say it does, somebody's not taking precautions. Because it seems like maybe they don't have to. Or we're not being presented these things very appropriately. Santarem looks like they're pretty much happy with the water staying the exact level that, it's going to stay at probably all the time. And basically you're going to see this with any and every small city. I have to call them, they're pretty small cities. I mean, the most major one is Manaus. All the way. And I probably pointed this out too before, is how there's absolutely no roads that go across the Amazon at Manaus. You have a bridge, they say, at Manaus that goes over Rio Negro, and then it just backtracks and stays on the north side of the Amazon. It doesn't go over. So it looks like, let's say even before the Amazon gets to the Rio Negro, and now we're going to have trouble. Google Earth is going to get blurry on us. Their plane got real blurry out here. But, again, it looks like we see a city that's pretty much used to the old mighty Amazon staying pretty consistent all the year long. Certainly not people expecting it to possibly rise up to 50 feet, to possibly spread 25 miles. I mean, what's 25 miles? If I put my little yellow line on there, I can't get 25 miles on this screen. Let me back up. Here, I'll clear this. So we'll take like a little portion here of the Amazon. And hey, just remember, everything I looked at from Manaus forward towards the sea those should be the places that we would expect to get the most flooding. But those are the places with the largest cities that are right along the Amazon, like they're not expecting it to do a damn thing. All right, so 25 miles. All right, this yellow line right now, click on it, that's 25 miles. Okay, so that's basically going to inundate any city that's along it. That's going to swallow up Manaus. Poor Manaus and all its beautiful old buildings, going to swallow it up. So it doesn't look like any of these people are prepared for the Amazon to swell like that. And I mean, before anybody says, well, it doesn't always swell 25 miles, maybe it just swells maybe it just swells a mile or so. All right, well, if it swelled a mile or so, and that was at Manaus, wonder how far a mile it'd be. Where my yellow line is, that's a mile. Okay, that's a mile up the shore, and it looks like nobody along the banks there are prepared for it. And we could do that with any other city on the Amazon's merry way from Manaus to the coast. Here, Araujo Costa. Araujo Costa. All right, let's go to their banks. The banks of Araujo Costa in about a mile. Oh, geez. Whoa. Okay, so where that yellow line is on the screen, I'll pull back a little bit. That's a mile. So if the mighty Amazon only swells a little bit, this is potentially where it's going. And if you're like, well, no, because it's just going to go in depending on how much the land rises, you stupid. Well, that's true. It should be dependent on how much the land rises. Let's see, can we do old streety view? Think so. We might have buildings in our way. Let's get down here. So it's always hit or miss. You know, can we do street views or not? It's a nice church, right? Let me see if we can go on this street a little bit. Always looking for a place to get a nice clear view. You know what? I'd probably be better if I, oh, good Lord. Exit ground level. Come on. Back. Pull back. Pull back. Okay. So it looks like we got a street that goes right along the banks. Yep, and I can get on it too. Let's see if I can get in a place where I got a good view. All right, not a great view. So maybe I can get closer. Well, of course, at this point it wouldn't be the Amazon, right? It'd be the Rio Negro. But they are confluent here, okay? So if the Amazon's going to rise 50 feet, I don't think we're going to look off the banks of this little town and see 50 feet of Amazonian water. Oh, wait, no, we're not. Sorry, we're not still in Manaus. This is full Amazon right here. Oh, that's weird. Look at that. It looks just like the confluence of the Rio Negro with the Amazon that we saw at Manaus. But here, isn't that freaking weird? That's supposed to be just the Amazon, by the way. So let me see. I'm going to see if I can look back into the city. And unfortunately for them, I don't see high hills. Trying to get as close to the shore as I can. I don't see high hills. That's not good. That tells me that river is going to spread. Let me exit street view. I'm going to go back in here a little bit. Because you remember how far that line was? I must have cleared the line too. Probably did. Let me get a little bit further up here. Because again, maybe I should pull back. Here, look. And I put my line in there again. About a mile. About a mile. Let me see if I can find a place close to a mile. Yeah, there's a nice grassy spot right there. Let me try a street view somewhere around here and see if I can get any kind of view outward. Right there. Okay. Looks like... So I want to be facing south. And looks like I am facing south. Doesn't look like the land really drops a lot. Looks relatively steady and even. So let me get into this intersection a little bit. Come on. Whoa, whoa, whoa. All right. Look up the other way. What do I got here? Doesn't really look like the land is rising so much either. So it looks like this city here might be pretty flat, which would make sense if the Amazon was indeed traveling all that ways. So I think when the mighty Amazon swells for half the year, that city must just be underwater. It's got to be tough. You got a place to live half the year. You know, thank your lucky stars you got that, because you're on the Amazon after all. So that was weird, though. How when we got on the street view there, the water looked a lot different than just the Amazon. It looked just like that confluence, what's supposed to be the confluence of the Rio Negro and the Amazon, out on Manaus's front porch. So let me see. I'm going to do it with one more city and then I'm going to move on, okay? Just following this whole idea of the rising, falling, shrinking, spreading, mighty Amazon River, that it appears nobody, and I mean nobody, is prepared for down here in Brazil land. Now, they'll let me get on Street View here. Okie dokie. And, aw, that's kind of nice. Does it look all brown and murky like? Guess it does. Now, I'll tell you what, I've been to the Mississippi a lot of times, and it's pretty big. Does it look like this right at the banks of the Mississippi? Some spots maybe. But let's look at them. Well, as I look back inland, way down this street as far as I can see, it doesn't look like the land rises. Oh, no, doesn't look like the land rises there either. And yeah, I would say these folks have done no preparation whatsoever. No preparation whatsoever for the Amazon to do its thing. Its rising and spreading thing. It's a shame. Let's see. Pull back here a little bit and maybe talk about a couple of other things. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and switch back to camera and pop in here and see. Hannah's the only one that's commented. Our viewers have kind of come and gone a little bit. Nobody's saying hello, so hey everybody. Hey, listen, is that space heater coming through in the audio? Because nobody said anything. I can't really tell. Hey yokel, how's it going? I'm glad you were able to make it. Hannah's not going to be able to tell me if it's coming through in the audio or not. She's like literally in the same room, so. Excuse me. Oh, okay, good. How's it going, Watto? Good to see you. So that's some weird stuff about the Amazon there, right? You would think if it do what they say it do, that we would be seeing something very, very different than, you know, these little cities and towns all along the banks, and I mean the banks of the Amazon. And, you know, doesn't appear to be these, you know, ridiculous signs either, just in the landscape of the great expansion contraction of it. Ah, Good deal. All caught up. Okay. So I'll go ahead and switch back to the map and get with a few of my other points on the Amazon, because they're not, regarding South America, they're not all about the Amazon, but some are, because I think that the Amazon is, I think that in some places the Amazon's a river. Probably. Different rivers. I think that's very reasonable. Various different rivers. But at a lot of places, no. Now, one of the reasons is, and this one's a real weird one, and I don't remember, so don't quote me. Let me switch to screen, sorry. I don't remember what this phenomenon is called, but I'm going to describe it to you. A couple of you might know what it's supposed to be called. Let me orient myself according to Google Earth's north. So they say that at certain times of the year, real interesting too, right? They say at certain times of the year, the Atlantic Ocean gets all fussy. And there are these enormous tides in the Atlantic Ocean. And what happens is that these tides come up and they create essentially a tidal wave that they say travels up the mouth of the Amazon. Get this. I want to say that they have literally said that it goes up the Amazon, this wave, a couple hundred miles. It's pretty ridiculous how far they say it goes up. I know they say it's got to go up at least, they claim, around like 500 miles. Look, even if it was 50, I'd have a hard time believing it. But let me see. So this is like that. They can't say 50 because this one branch of the confluence or mouth of the Amazon is supposed to be 50 miles. It's got to be like 500. And they say there are guys who like professionally surf it and all that, and I don't really care. But the problem I have is this claim that it travels up that many miles of the Amazon, because as you can see, there appears to be about 3 main inlets from the Atlantic, or outlets of the Amazon to the Atlantic. They're not that huge. I mean, this one's like 5 miles. Okay, that's fine. This one here is probably, what, a couple miles? They say about 4 miles. This one here, it looks bigger, but it's got a big old island in the way. So only 2 inlets, and then it just kind of funnels off here. Well, the problem I have is if you just look at it and you think about how water behaves, and if you got this huge tidal wave coming in from the Atlantic, I got a real problem with it maintaining any kind of momentum when, first off, it's hitting this huge reduction in the size of the river. Now, first off, this is supposed to be a different river over here, this Baía do Vieira Grande, which I had that once over there at the Taco Bell. It was okay. But so this was supposed to be the Amazon, so I'm assuming it's following this course. You know, who knows what that is exactly. It's that spot where the Amazon gets strangely dark blue instead of brown and murky. So it would have to essentially keep up its momentum and force for miles and miles and miles of twists and turns and winds and little inlets, outlets. You know, those fun things that rivers do. So I got a real problem with that. However, I wouldn't so much have a problem with it if we were just talking about a long, narrow strait in the sea. That wouldn't be that big a deal. Let me see here. This is one of the last cities there is before the confluence of the Amazon, Macapa, right? And Macapa I'm not getting into star forts, but Macapa has this star-shaped area here that I'm sure they haven't prepared properly for the Amazon rising or spreading by putting that star-shaped thing there a long time ago. And obviously, they're not prepared for those giant tidal waves either with, this thing right out in the water. Nope. They are not prepared unless this thing can float up 50 feet. Yeah. There's some problems, I would say, with what they say are facts about the Amazon. I'll tell you something else, and this gets really weird too. So I spent some time just in the last week looking at the Guyanas, because the Guyanas are real weird. The Guyanas are essentially supposed to be 3 countries kind of carved out of South America here. They got Venezuela on one side and supposedly Brazil all down the part of the western side, southern side, a little bit east here if you want to call it that. But what's so strange is if you go to the furthest Guyana, because they were all called Guyanas one time, and that's, by the way, it's very deceptive. That is one of the most common names of essentially like tropical countries there is. Well, and if not Guyana, Guinea, that those names, they're extremely similar, spelled almost the same, just with different letters. And we've seen that with a lot of other things. So anyways, there was, I was watching this, like a travel video on Guyana, probably made and looked like about the 80s or so. And the travel guide said, unfortunately, don't come down here for like beautiful seascapes because the water is so murky. And they said, well, I wondered, well, why is it so murky? Because I've seen a number of other pictures and videos of places along the coast of the Guyanas and all the way down to the Amazon that also look murky. If you see it on Google Earth, they show it as real murky. She says it's all the discharge of the Amazon. Now, I would have thought maybe from these little rivers, but these aren't supposed to be big rivers at all. They're really not. Nope, it's the discharge of the Amazon that makes all that water around there brown and murky and looking just exactly like the Amazon does. As opposed to whatever this place is and whatever its characteristics are, a lot of the water that's kind of flowing all around these places, maybe a lot of it looks kind of brown and murky, but who's to say? Because, some of those close-up street views that we just went to didn't make the Amazon look all that brown and murky. It looked actually pretty normal, like a real normal river. It didn't really look like, chocolate milk. At least not the kind my mom used to make where she skimped on the chocolate. But, so let me see. A couple of other things, maybe here. And I'm going to take a second before I get on with that. Hey, so before I do that, how was everybody's Thanksgiving? Did anybody do anything special? Just, it's nice to ask. I mean, it's, I kind of, to this day, I still sort of like Thanksgiving because it's a nice little chance for people to have an excuse, to like get together with their families and stuff, even like family members you don't particularly love spending time around. It's kind of that excuse, like, yeah, I don't love spending time around them, but it's Thanksgiving, so we need to get together and try to have a conversation. And I will also add, even though our Thanksgiving is a different date. Oh, in Canada, is it? Didn't know that. Oh, yeah, that's right, Germany. Well, is it only in America? It's just in America. Just funny because we had speaking of Latin America, you have these Latin Americans who work at the local McDonald's. And apparently, since they don't celebrate Thanksgiving in whatever country they came from, they don't feel like they need to respect our culture and say Happy Thanksgiving here. Oh, October 13th. Okay, so I missed it. Well, that's still kind of, fall. Anyways, yeah, we had enchiladas. They're good. They're like Thanksgiving enchiladas. And I was going to say, I actually usually kind of look forward to it because I like turkey. I still like turkey just anytime. I kind of prefer just, turkey at Thanksgiving. Maybe that's why I look forward to it, because like most of the rest of the year, it's kind of like turkey. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess we can figure out something to do with this 100-pound bird here. But, since it's such a big bird, seems like Thanksgiving and, maybe Christmas gives you a couple of times a year to try to sort out what you're going to do with all that. Yeah, I'm good with the turkey, but I definitely come for the stuffing, especially depending on who's making it. It's my thing. But here's the deal. I'll take stuffing right out of the box, stovetop. It's okay. I'm pretty forgiving when it comes to stuffing because, my God, it's stuffing. So, yeah, we don't always do the traditional thing, but sometimes it's a nice excuse to do something like that. It's good when people can spend time with their families. So let me go ahead and pop back on the Google Earth screen here real quick. You know what I'm going to have to do? What I have to do every single time? I'm going to have to just pause for like not even 10 seconds and just, take care of my overactive nose real quick. Let me get on screen here and I'm going to mute my mic, but stay with me. Stand by. I swear if I moved out to the American Southwest, my nose would keep running. Anyways. Alright. What else have I got? Well, there are some... So here we get back into the oddities when I started out with... how it was so weird that there was no road that went from Panama to Colombia, right? That's not the only road weirdness. And before I start talking about road weirdness, yeah, I'm familiar with, there's pretty much, well, mostly, not entirely, excuses for why there aren't roads. But for one thing, there is not one road that adjoins Brazil with, for instance, Suriname or most of Guyana and French Guyana. So basically, if you wanted to get to Suriname from Brazil, you would have to take essentially either this coastal road that pretty much, and there's not many of them, this coastal road in Brazil that they say winds up through French Guyana and then into Suriname. And it's supposed to continue, actually. Except it stops there. You'd have to take a ferry or something. It's not even a bridge. Because, just because the English, the Dutch, and the French own these places, and I mean own them, they're not ashamed about admitting it. They just haven't... They don't budget things out too good. So they haven't managed to afford, a lot of bridges themselves in these places. So even still, when you, if you take this road, let's see, this road that winds around through the, well, I guess the west side of Guyana, English Guyana. And you come up around this other side of this apparent river, the Essequibo. You're still stuck with basically ferries across it and all of these odd islands all over the place. Now, some people could say, but wait a minute, hold on. I consulted the map, and I found that there was at least one good road that went from the south of Guyana into Georgetown, because that's really the only main town there. And I think I'm on the right road here. Yeah. It goes through this place that just looks like, I don't know, hell on earth. Which, by the way, I mean, almost everywhere you can count in South America, these big wide open, and this is not just South America, this is almost anywhere, these big wide open spaces that are really hard to account for. Almost all of them are some kind of national park or another. So, you know, no traveling. No traveling in that park. You're desecrating the park there. So I tried to find some good confirmations of this little crossing here. This would be essentially a crossing from Brazil into Guyana, the English Guyana. And I had trouble. We finally found a video of these guys, I think the channel's called Go It Alone, who actually were traveling in a group, so I don't get the name of the channel. But they said they crossed here at this apparent Tacutu River from Brazil into Guyana. But since they didn't think they would be filming in South America anymore, they forgot to film their crossing. So let's see. Hey, oh, that's fantastic. So I can put my little Street View guy, here, and unfortunately, I can't take him all the way across the bridge over here into apparently Guyana, which, strangely enough, I found this to be the case at a lot of places where these South American countries appear to border on a bridge. I can get the little Street View guy on one side of the bridge and not the other. Or the other side of the bridge and not the other. Now, why is that weird? Well, first off, I have a hard time believing that the Google drivers didn't bring the appropriate passports and papers and stuff so they could cross the bridge. And here it doesn't seem like real tight security, but they couldn't make it across the bridge. Couldn't make it across the bridge. Maybe a troll got them. But here's what my problem is with this. Is that when you stop at a bridge like that, there is something very interesting that can be done. What's that? Well, what that is taking, like, let me see if I can go back. I'll go back a ways a little bit, right? Because it's supposed to be a pretty big bridge. And I know it's slow going. And I wish that, you know, the little Google car, when you do Street View, I wish the little Google car would let you go faster when you want to go in a certain direction, but they don't. They make you go real slow, and it's boring as all get out. But kind of my problem is this. When you get to a point where you got a river and a far bank and a place that's supposed to be on the other side of that river, and especially when there is very, 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 very few independent verifications of the two sides of this apparent river being as Google Earth is showing them, the problem I have is that anyone with a little bit of talent can take all the images on the one side of the bridge. Even if you got to the furthest extent they'd allow you on Street View, and piece in whatever land they wanted to piece in on that other side of the bridge, and say, oh yeah, that's definitely the place we're saying it is. And they can do the same thing on the other side of that bridge. Now let me see here. So the other side of this bridge, we were looking apparently from the Brazil side towards Guyana. And I'm not sure if we get this same phenomenon here. Nope, they're not letting me do Street View here. That's unfortunate. Maybe they'll let me do Street View when we get up. Well, for somewhere. Do Street View somewhere? Nowhere? So this is not a thing that just affects this apparent place in Guyana. This is supposed to be the town of something on the border of Brazil and Guyana. I just forgot the name of it. Lethem. This isn't just a phenomenon that affects Lethem. This is a phenomenon that you're going to find in a lot of towns. So we can't do Street View. We can't do Street View on the other side of the bridge, which is really important. We can't do Street View anywhere. So I guess we'll have to take their word for it. I can't remember when it was. I think I tried this a few times where they would finally allow me to do Street View. But it's a little ways. That's concerning. Especially when you don't have many roads that are like, yeah, that's definitely a road that leads from this country to this country. And the problem is few to no people really actually travel it. And you want to get some confirmation of it. And then, you know, Google Earth's going to not allow you to do a nice smooth transition from the one place to the other. You have to wonder, well, why is that? There was another place, actually, that these go-it-alone people ended up at. So it's part of the way up as you would travel, according to them, from the Brazilian border up to Georgetown. You get to this river. This is supposed to be, of course, the main river in Guyana, and it's a place called Curucucari. Curucucari. And what you have to do is you have to drive this road from Lethem to Curucucari, and then you can't drive anymore because you know how poor the English are. They can't afford to put a bridge in there. So not only do you have to catch a ferry over a pretty wide expanse of waters, but when you go in to try to go ahead and confirm what's going on here geographically in Curucucari, this is what you get right on screen. That's as sharp as it gets there, folks, for Curucucari. Sadly enough, the folks that I've seen that have produced videos of the ferry crossing at Curucucari never give us a nice non-stop trip either. So, are we looking at another strait with various islands? Well, I don't know, because, you know, Google Earth isn't helping at all. I mean, absolutely at all. So, there's even some problems with these roads that they say connect from, let's say, the far reaches of Brazil. Remember, no roads that go into Suriname from Brazil, but like this road that they say you could connect from, well, you can't. No, I'm sorry, you actually can't. And we got another road over here that should be in what? Venezuela. And what's going on with this road? Well, looks like that road is staying out of Guyana, which, by the way, anywhere where you see this red is all disputed territory. And I would imagine, since it's disputed territory, Hot dispute. Nobody's allowed to go in there. Don't go in there. It's disputed territory. So anyways, this road runs far afield of Guyana, unfortunately. So we've got what looks to be like, well, let me see. Okay, let's go down to Guyana, and we got a road that goes to nowhere in Guyana to the north and the west. Road that goes to nowhere. Are we going to pick up any other road here along the coast? No, we're not. Not through the disputed territory. And we've got a big crazy looking river delta again. Seems to be the order of the day down here in what they call South America. When are we going to pick up a road? Well, I don't know. We seem to have a road way, way inland, shy of that delta. And let's see, the first road we really pick up is all the way up here around Carapano and this Gulf of Paria. It's actually north of the Gulf of Paria. If I pull back on it a little bit concerning Venezuela, it's literally that far to the north and west of Guyana that we actually pick up a road. And remember, this road that's down here, it doesn't connect with Guyana. Doesn't connect with Guyana. So that's kind of weird. The funny thing is I never actually had the time to look into this other road they say that connects from Brazil into French Guyana. But maybe this will give us better results, because it's a mixed bag down here in the place they call South America. As far as what you get to see, bridges, especially bridges near borders. Here's a weird one. I mean, my goodness, how many different graphic problems are we going to have here around this Oyapock River? I mean, in the land. Graphic problems in the land. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different graphic representations here. I mean, how many times did they have to send the drone up to get this footage? Because this is kind of wild. And a number of different graphic representations in this Oyapock River. So let's see. So technically we should have, Brazil down here and French Guyana up here. And it looks pretty major, so I'm thinking we'll be able to put our little street view guy down here. Maybe cross the bridge. Well, that's unfortunate. I can't. Well, let me see. Okay. Let me see if, when we get on the French Guyana side, there's a place for us to go street view. Oh, man. Oh, that's the worst. Talk about bad luck. The only road going from Brazil to French Guyana, and I can't confirm it with the street view. I'm sure I'll be able to at least get some street view of whatever this purplish blue village is along this river. What do you think? Street views? Nothing. Street views on the highway? No. Okay, no street views there. Like anywhere there? Let me see. Oh, wait, I get a few. I get like literally a few. So it looks like the Google car was only concerned with headed up 156. They did a quick loop-de-loop and then they were out of there. Doesn't sound like a nice town, maybe. Okay, so this is supposed to be on the river that connects these two places. And, hey, that's a nice purty blue river. Look at that. Almost looks like the sea. Does that river almost look like the sea? Because it looks kind of like the sea a little bit. Nice and blue. Pretty, like the sea. But unfortunately, yeah, they're only going to give us a couple of streets in a street view. So for anybody who might read, well, let me see, we're on the Brazil side. Portuguese. Do any of these businesses say seaside dining? I can't tell. But, strange. I'm going to exit Street View. Okay, so they definitely don't claim that this is brown water. Not here, anyways. Looks pretty dark though. But yeah, unfortunately, we're only able to get a couple of little street views of that. No confirmation on this one road that goes from Brazil to French Guiana. That's a shame. I was really hoping for better from Google, you know. I'll bet you I probably can start getting street views right there, 156. Just not up the real important verification road. Guess it doesn't matter. So on the other side, apparently on the other side, we got nothing until we get up here. We've got a small Saint George. Saint George. And we still have something, it looks like, what, on the Brazil side? Based on where the border is. No bridge or anything. Just the Oyapock River that appears to be not that big. What, a half mile wide? Let's see. Get out of that and do my street view. I'm not sure if it actually... I think you have to be in a little closer to start getting your street view to even activate here on Google Earth, because it's not activating. So some of these places, you know, this is a big place apparently, if it's a place. I haven't had the... Nope, won't activate. I haven't had the chance to try a number of these, like confirm street views. It's still not activating on N2, which is taking us into this, what do they call it? Saint George? Saint George? On this river, and we're not even getting... Oh, don't tell me I can't get street view on the roundabout. Nope. And nope, and nope. Oh, no. Oops. Yeah. So the land is really flat there. I'll see if they throw us a bone right near the river. But I'm taking the time to do this just to show you how remarkably difficult it is to confirm just a ton of these purported places down here in this place they call South America. And not letting me do any street views on the little town that's supposed to be across the river either. So there you got that. Now, so far, the things that I've shown you, what do you think? Do any of you think that that's a little bit strange that we don't have... Not only do we not have a road that joins the purported Panamanian Isthmus with the rest of this megacontinent, South America, we have no adjoining road. But apparently we don't have roads that we can confirm join a number of these countries. Those three odd Guyana countries got nothing. Weird places too. Strange demographics. Oh, by the way, I didn't even let me just check what's been happening in chat maybe while I was gone. Yeah, Watto, that the town doesn't exist. Well, I've got an issue because of the lack of independent verification of not one town, of a lot of towns. The lack of independent verification of these borders. And of course, another problem is that there's a lack of... There's really just a lack of people in these places in South America that are doing independent confirmations of these things. I can go to virtually anywhere in North America and confirm these things, or somebody near them can. And that's an issue when you have, it's kind of an accumulation of parts. As we just saw, yeah, there's no roads from Brazil to Suriname. Well, that's not that strange, because there's roads from Guyana or French Guyana into Suriname. But, of course, the problem is that we have little to no independent confirmation of those places existing in the way they say, and we have so many broken roads between here and there, which might inexplicably require ferries instead of having bridges. And again, almost nobody with the financing to independently travel and record these places, these roads, these connections between these places in detail. And that's the other problem. A lot of these guys who say that they're doing this traveling down, for instance, in South America, they don't really track their travel all that great. Like, for instance, they'll say, well, on these days we traveled from this place on the map to that place on the map. And then what they'll do is they'll throw in, a few edited, we're supposed to be here, we're supposed to be here, kind of. And for instance, I think I mentioned last week that I was tracking these people who were supposed to be traveling in Patagonia. And based on where they said they took a ferry from one place to another, and then what roads they had available to them, which was one road, from that point of connecting on the ferry to the next spot where they'd have to take another ferry, I tracked, because they had this, it was very highly produced, because it's supposed to be basically like three Land Rovers doing all of this odd travel through, dirt roads and sort of seaside or riverside roads and all that. And we've got aerial views of them doing this, so somebody is controlling some kind of a drone showing them do. It's not a cheap production, it's a very expensive production. And I tried looking it up on the map to see where they would be based on landmarks, like types of land, like jutting out of the waters at different places, marking that, looking where they would have to be and where they'd have to be traveling, and can't find those places existing as per Google Maps. So there's a problem between what they're saying and where they're saying they are and traveling, and what the map, like Google Map, which is supposed to be accurate, right, is telling us exists. I mean, I'd see them traveling on essentially the wrong side of these, because when you get into Patagonia, you're essentially supposed to be traveling, when you have roads, basically through like various types of straits, maybe some rivers, fjords, because the whole of Patagonia basically looks a lot like, more like Scandinavia, Greenland, places like that. I would see them traveling on essentially the wrong side of these waterways as to where they were supposed to be traveling, in the direction they were supposed to be traveling in. So even when, there's apparent documentation of it, there's not. They're all heavily edited. They don't tell you exactly where they are, so we can get some good exact confirmations. And before this, if you try to look into what film exists on these places, you're going to come up with, like, bupkis. Nothing solid. So if that weren't enough, go back to the screen here. We can essentially go through Venezuela, because the one thing is about these various countries, look, I don't know necessarily what to say about them, other than there are some claims about them that are very strange, and I'm not sure how much they really add up. Now, I haven't closely tracked what is supposed to be the borders of like Venezuela and Brazil, and also Venezuela is supposed to border Colombia. Don't think I've tracked the border of Venezuela and Colombia really close, but I did spend some time tracking the border of at least Ecuador and Colombia, and maybe Ecuador and Peru, because it's the strangeness is how little positive connections we have between these places that are supposed to, make up the countries. And then when we go back to, for instance, the time zones issue, some of them might have some serious issues with their time zone, like how much parts of Brazil seem to be in odd time zones, one way or the other, and so on and so forth. But I'll give you another couple of good examples. So between Ecuador and Colombia, it's supposed to be Colombia here, and so Ecuador to the southwest, you would only have 2 roads, and I believe 2 connecting roads. I'm not sure if it's 3. I did check those out. Let me see if I can get to where they are. So this one road just dead ends here at this little town city. Remember, like, next to nobody even visits these places either. It's not like people are traveling. When people travel, and this going back to the whole idea of traveling in the 20th century, so basically since the fuzzy years, all that travel's mostly going to be to these major destinations, kind of where they tell you to travel to. So we've got next to nobody actually traveling to these places. Let me pull back a little bit so I can get my bearings. So this is supposed to be one bridge that's supposed to go from Ecuador to Colombia. Now remember this one. Here's the other strange phenomenon that you'll get. Google Earth will tell you one thing from above, and then let's say when you go down to do Street View, you're not getting what they say is there. So we've got this bit of road leading up to what's supposed to be the Rio San Miguel River. Again, another chocolate milk river here in South America, which I would think, if I was trying to just play devil's advocate, maybe I would say, well, yeah, I mean, on the eastern side of the Andes, maybe all the soil and stuff is all a certain way, so yeah, I mean, maybe they all do look kind of similar. What's the big deal? It's strange how many of them look the same way on the apparent west side of the Andes too. But you got this place called Terminal Vehicular Frontazero thingy. So if I put these Street View like right in the middle, and you can't mistake this, it's like freaking gigantic, man. And this is just an example of what you're going to get. Hey, where did the Terminal de Frontiero de Zero de Zai thing go? Because, man, it was freaking gigantic. I've got basically a pissy little road and parking lot. I got nothing but a shack. Like, literally, that place doesn't exist. Why do I point that out? I point that out because that is a common phenomenon that you're going to find when you go from the bird's eye view to the Google Street View. And of course, this is one of the places that you can cross. Has a sign on one side, thank you for visiting us, Ecuador, and it seems to have this sign on the other side, welcome to Colombia. And you can actually stay in the Google car and go all the way across it. Now, is this place where they say it is? And do these people even know? Do these people even travel outside of these small places to verify such a thing? I would have no idea. But it's bad enough that it seems over and over and over and over again, I end up going to Street View when I can go to Street View, and those things, they just don't match what I'm getting on Google Earth. And here's the thing, to say, well, maybe something is newer or older. Well, kind of, sort of okay. If you said, well, maybe the Street View was made in this year, and then they built this huge thing in a few years, and it just wasn't on there when they did Street View. All right, I don't know how often they do Street Views, but I do know that it's strange that it's not a minority phenomenon. In fact, it happens all the time. Now, if that was the case, they must have also torn down the building or two that was supposed to be on the other side of the road also. And as far as the other roads that would appear to connect these places, we can just go along the border here, and we get to, oh, by the way, not sure if anybody has noticed this, but if you watch videos, for instance, that are supposed to be being filmed along like the Peruvian coast, think of one of the big sites like Machu Picchu. It's strange to me that the Andes Mountains, like especially all through Peru and stuff, look just like, and they're weird. They're weird. Whatever. I mean, yeah, I know that we seem to see these interesting and normal looking mountain peaks always back in the distance, especially of propaganda films, like the old propaganda films. But what they call the Andes themselves, they're strange, like real verticular kind of mountain and rock formations like you see at Machu Picchu. Weirdly enough, you're going to see the same kind of verticular rock formations around Rio de Janeiro. I mean, it's kind of weird. I did not know that whatever sort of rocky mountainous areas there were on the east coast of South America looked almost exactly like the ones on the west coast. So I think this is the next little place we have here, and I want to say, now this one is over a river because we got Colombia, we got Ecuador. And what was the specifics of this one? Trying to remember so that I don't have to go through the whole thing. Now, this one I actually believe, again, that you can get to Street View, you can cross the bridge, you will see the signs. So there is one that appears to be a confirmation as such. I'll put you right on Street View on the Ecuadorian side, and you can take a look of this bridge. Yeah. Now, I will comment on this, especially when we get to this area of what's supposed to be Ecuador and Colombia. I find it bizarre just how damned many evergreen trees and Holstein cows, for instance, there, that we're seeing. Now, don't get me wrong. I basically know what the story is on evergreen trees or conifers. Typically, they're mostly supposed to grow in cold and temperate environments, not tropical environments, they say. But, I guess if the altitude is right, then they grow there too. And I guess we're going to have to assume that the altitude is just right, because if you start going through the roads here in what's supposed to be Ecuador and maybe areas of what's supposed to be Colombia around here, you're going to see evergreens out the wazoo. But I am showing you this because this is one spot that does appear to confirm the geography. Of course, I did spend a long time looking at the roads on either side of this road, and I kept going back and forth between street view and bird's eye view, and there were a number of spots that didn't appear to line up all that great. One thing I'm surprised of, and anyone could say, well, you know, topography is very deceptive if you look at it from a bird's eye view and then you go down into street view. But I would say I do think it's a little bit odd how remarkably different the topography of the land looks when we go from this overhead view, and then if we can, we'll just plop back down on street view again, maybe just to see that it does look remarkably different. It does look remarkably different. And with such sharp, what appears to be like bluffs on either side of this bridge, I guess I am a little bit surprised that when we're looking at bird's eye view, the bridge is about the only thing casting a significant shadow. Because if those bluffs were that sharp, I guess I would kind of expect them to be casting some shadows here and there too, but apparently they're not. I mean, we got the trees casting shadows, but we don't appear to have those bluffs casting shadows. That's strange, because I thought when we looked back on the street view here that this was like a sheer face that they had just cut right out of a bluff or something. It's really casting no shadow. So either bird's eye view is just extremely deceptive because you just can't see the topography, or maybe there is a little bit of an issue between what the map is showing us and wants us to believe, and wherever this place is that we see when we go down in there. I guess what my point is to all of this is that there really is, when you start trying to look at all of this stuff in detail, a real problem between what they say is and what can be confirmed. And I want to say I think my orientation is all off now. Gonna have to pull back a little bit. So yeah, this is still Colombia up top and Ecuador at the bottom, and this is supposed to be, okay, one more. This isn't what we just did. Right, this is supposed to be a highway between these two places. Not much of anything down there. I think if anything, what we've got, like a small river or creek. What's weird is again, when you're crossing the bridge here, for some reason you start out on the one side of the bridge and everything's one sort of season, and then when you get pretty much on the bridge, the seasons change, the bridges change. So somewhere along the way they had to stop at the bridge again, it appears, and start all over again. I think we can see that if we just, hopefully I'm not too far here. Oh, wait. Please tell me I'm not at the same one. I'm at the same one. How did I do that? I think I got myself turned around. I'm sorry about that. I did get myself turned around. So I'm going to the last one, not this one. The last one, which is, again, just to figure things out, should be right here. This is supposed to be it, right? The highway. I think it's supposed to be like a highway. Okay. Can we get a street view there at least? No, we can't. I keep getting this bad feeling that I skipped over one. Maybe we just haven't reached it yet on the border. Nope, that's at the very border. Okay, so that one we can't get a confirmation of. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought we had one more that we could check, and it's the one I'm talking about. Where again, as we get to the bridge. Oh yeah, you know what? That's not Ecuador to Colombia. That's actually Ecuador to Peru, which I'm not sure I want to get into Ecuador to Peru. So let me see if I can even think of a few more oddities, I guess, just to bring up here. Besides, going into these apparent roads and bridges between these countries. Virtually every single one of them crossing water. And I'm sure anybody could say, well, duh, because, water, there's your natural boundary point, rivers and stuff. Sure. Sure, river's a natural boundary. I haven't actually had any time to really, do Bolivia, but, with the Andes and stuff here, it's pretty funny where we get rivers running to and why. But besides the whole thing with roads and borders and all that, I also thought it was really interesting that they say that some of the largest mines in the world not only are in South America, way, way far inland. There's no independent verification of these mines. Way far inland. And even like Google Earth, when you start zooming in on some of them, I'm going to have to leave the roads because the roads are... Anyways, so here's the oddity of these mines. Even though I can't seem to find... I don't think it's in Piranha. But virtually all of them that they say are in South America, there's a few oddities about them. One is because all of these countries, they're supposed to be, massively outproducing North American mines, which for anybody who's not familiar, all you got to do is go back to the fuzzy years and look at some of the propaganda films that are being published back at that time. And North America was still dominant in mines, size, what's produced, the amount of different minerals and materials that were being produced. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, in maybe around the 60s, 70s, all of these mines kind of seem to dry up or start to dry up all at the same time in North America. And wouldn't you know it, this is just luck. I would say it's just luck. All of a sudden, these mines in South America start getting discovered. Lucky, lucky, lucky. And here's the thing, funny enough too, a lot of these mines, they say, are owned by American companies, which, I'm not saying I'm saying this, but I'm saying somebody who might be a little suspicious of stories they hear that don't seem to add up. Not me, but some people might say that it's kind of weird that they claim that a lot of these are owned by American companies, because that would appear to validate this idea that all of these mines in North America kind of just ran out all at the same time, because look at that, it's American companies going and looking for these other mines because American mines just ran out. Weird thing is, so many of these mines are either hundreds and hundreds of miles inland. So logistically, getting a lot of these materials out to any appropriate ports, ridiculously expensive. As much as they claim the purity is so high in a lot of these Brazilian mines, I don't understand, because they're still having to turn all this iron into pellets. If the purity was above about 65%, they wouldn't have to do that, but they're still doing it in these mines. Weird. And then other mines like copper mines. All the copper mines seem to just run out of copper. Like, for instance, up in the Upper Peninsula, just kind of all at the same time. Native copper, too, best in the world, just all ran out in the 60s. And now they're opening up mines like around Chile and, I don't know, maybe in Argentina that are, not only are they way off the coast, but I'm not sure if some of them are supposed to be in this province here. Not only are they way off the coast, but once they get them to the coast, which I'm assuming they'd have to truck them down these crazy mountain roads, they've got like no ports. In fact, I'm not even sure what port they'd have to get a lot of these materials to ship them out of. No good ports. So what a crazy logistical nightmare for all of these super mines that they say exist down there in South America. But again, I want to stress how lucky we are that all these companies found them at the same time that all these mines in North America just dried up. So anyways, with that, I'm going to jump off the screen and back on the camera. So a lot of weird things happen, and the more that you look into these things, the more you got to admit, hey, what strange coincidences. What strange coincidences that all the mines in North America seem to dry up. Most of them, especially in the Midwest and Eastern North America. Around the same time, they're discovering all these great mega mines around the world. It's the most convenient thing ever. Same with a lot of other industries. Oh, and weirdly enough, I was looking into psychiatry and these asylums, mental institutions in America, late 1800s, early 1900s. There's all these Tartarian guys out there, and boy, they seem to give a lot of lip service to these asylums. And, I'm kind of thinking about asylums in America because, I'm an American. And the funny thing is they don't really talk a lot about what cases were prevalent in these asylums. Like, first off, there was tons of them, which is crazy. But the fact that it seems like none of them have really looked into these sort of cases that were prevalent and what the symptoms of these cases were, like delusions, and how they never really want to define them. So the main one, delusions, that's a symptom of what they call paranoid schizophrenia, which could essentially be anything they want it to be. You can even find that out with AI. AI like all but admits that. Delusions, paranoia, maybe fear, trauma, isolation. Essentially, they could say that anybody that's in any kind of group like these major Tartaria groups on Facebook and whatnot, that they're suffering from delusions too, that they're paranoid schizophrenics, they could say. They kept people locked up, legally, locked up in these places. A lot of them veterans too, especially from World War II and I. Wonder what kind of crazy delusions they were suffering from. Until the 60s. And that's when everything, they say, just switched over from them being able to put people in institutions for whatever reason they saw fit, to it being more of a voluntary kind of thing, and they shut down tons of them. That's about the same time that these mines were all being shut down. It's just weird, kind of a coincidence there. You find that when you look into just anything having to do with industry, power control, politics, international trade, doesn't really matter. Educations, ideas, cultural reforms, name it. That they all seem to have this remarkably interesting overlap of when one thing stopped and the next thing started, or vice versa. So just wanted to point that out. But anyways, with that, I'm going to wrap up this stream. The funny thing is, next week I even thought of talking more at length about these asylums, especially in North America. They seem to have nearly the same policy between the United States and Canada, and maybe approaching them from angles that, these guys who say that they're trying to deal with whatever they call it. I don't know if they want to call it hidden history, alternative history, Tartarian history, whatever. They seem to keep missing some of the most important components to these asylums, mental institutions, and that whole system that supported them: psychiatry, counseling, social work, etc. So I might actually talk about that stuff a bit next time, even though it's remarkably hard to find, for instance, very specific, verifiable case studies. And I mean, for institutions that were supposed to have been going and doing the kind of remarkable damage to the amount of people that they supposedly did, it's really surprising that they can't find or produce a remarkable amount of extremely accurate and verifiable case studies. Especially when you get into, diagnoses like paranoid schizophrenia, which, the funny thing about paranoid schizophrenia, it's kind of one of those things where it depends on the perspective of who's diagnosing it. They say that the paranoid schizophrenic isn't in touch with reality, but that reality is heavily dependent upon the definition that the psychiatrists or whoever else are saying that reality is. This is the definition of reality. Always using these very generic terms that are kind of hard to prove. Even their definitions of reality, if a psychiatrist says in the 1940s this person, they're out of touch with reality, they're not even giving us their definition of what reality is, or how and when they're sane. What parts of reality are they back in touch with that would make a psychiatrist say, well, yeah, I think he's making good strides, and now I think, yeah, he's much more sane now. A lot of strange things about all of that. So, hey, thanks you guys for joining me, and so on and so forth. And ostensibly, I'll see you guys again next week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Anybody got anything to say before I cut it off real quick? Give it a second. By the way, anybody who might come across, thanks, first name. I am too. It's a remarkably interesting subject. I did want to say, anybody who comes across any books or publications that purport to have very specific case studies of paranoid schizophrenics, especially paranoid schizophrenics from, say, the 1930s to, I'd like to cut it off somewhere at the 50s, even though they said that continued somewhere into the early 60s before they finally did away with the it was a lock 'em up sort of institutionalization policy they had, and they'd oftentimes lock people up for the rest of their lives, and they would torture them with causing them to go into like insulin shock on purpose. They do this electroshock therapy. And you're going to love the frontal lobotomy and how they did that. Just a long ice pick right up one of the eyes, right into the brain. Ring that thing around, And wouldn't you know it, then they're all better. But yeah, anybody who might come across anything that would appear to be relatively solid case studies regarding paranoid schizophrenia in that time period, get a hold of me. Let me know, because I'd like to know about it. I've been looking for somewhat verifiable case studies of individuals around that time period, and I'm just having trouble coming across much of anything. Um, yeah, it is beyond disturbing. It seems to be a sort of violence that falls into that realm of sophisticated violence, things that look kind of on the up and up on the surface, and when you dig into it, it's some of the darkest stuff regarding the treatment of human beings. Um, yeah, I heard that too. First name. Um, Basically, yeah. So sometimes it wouldn't just be, uh, you know, institutionalization like a prison for the rest of some of these people's natural lives, but their children too. Maybe, to see if they thought their children were going to serve any purpose outside of there without passing on whatever information the mother might still be suffering from. Her delusions. Her delusions. Maybe making sure that she didn't pass along her delusions to her child. So it is an odd time period with those mental health issues. I agree. One of the big problems is I want to know what the delusions are that these people are said to suffer from, because if you get a lot of the propaganda films, it's all actors, it's all staged stuff, and it's all real generic too. You know, oh, we think they're hearing voices or seeing things that aren't there, or they've become isolated from friends and family, and we're not giving good, sharp reasons to that either. Just um, a lot of problematic claims as pretexts for oftentimes lifelong institutionalization and torture. I would say I don't believe in a lot of these torture things where they say they spin people on wheels and dunk them in on these like elaborate chair weight weird systems. I don't know if I believe that. I think a lot of that might just be sensationalism that's distracting us from the real horrors of these places. But I don't know. We'll see. So, all right. I guess I will see you guys next week, and I'm going to close this thing out. And thanks for joining me.